So today I want to record a video probably talking about brain retraining and the ability to heal yourself from a physical chronic illness through rewiring how your mind and your nervous system works, right? So a lot of people that watch my content or that are interested in kind of healing on the healing path, healing from a chronic illness, dealing with physical symptoms, whether it's long COVID, CFS, chronic pain, post-concussion, POTS, you name it, right? When we're dealing with one of these things, and if you found your way to my content, you're probably familiar with the term brain retraining, because there's people that aren't, but they would not resonate with the stuff that I talk about. Those kind of people watch my videos and say, oh, you're saying it's all in my head. Which there's different components of. But basically, what I want to share from here today is how these kinds of techniques allowed me to not only heal from the chronic illness and kind of release that story, narrative, identity from my life that was keeping me stuck, the whole story. And when I say story, I don't just mean that I was imagining my symptoms. I had very severe, very intense physical symptoms as a result of my nervous system being in this completely dysfunctional. I don't actually want to use that word, because part of this healing path is realizing that all of the stuff that's happening in your nervous system is actually okay, but it can just be very overwhelming, and the mind can kind of perceive it as something that's very intense and bad. But yeah, like my nervous system's response to external kind of stress and all of that was not in a healthy balance. And this led to, as everybody that watches these kind of videos about healing from chronic illness, chronic fatigue syndrome, blah, 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 knows not everybody knows this, but you know what I mean. It's a lot about kind of getting stuck in these crashes and cycles because of how our nervous system is responding to external circumstances. So what I want to share today is, I don't often talk like this. I often talk more about the deeper aspects of this process. But I was talking with somebody recently, and with somebody I recently met, and we were just talking because she was been going through this healing journey as well. And she pointed out, which was, I think, quite helpful for me, was how clear it was that my natural response to challenge and anything in life now was just a certain openness to the opportunities of that, and how clear it was that whatever work that I'd done on this healing path, I completely rewired my brain's perception of there's no such thing as a problem, really. And that made me reflect on talking a bit more about all of the different things that I did to basically rewire my brain. Because, talking about this stuff, it's a funny thing. It's impossible, honestly, in trying to record a manageable video for somebody to watch, to include all of the different aspects that I use to heal. But it did make me reflect on this aspect of it, of rewiring my brain, really actively retraining my mind's response to difficulty, to challenge, to discomfort. I did a lot of work around this. So that's what I want to share in this video, is basically how I went about this, and how it not only led to me healing from the chronic illness, it led to a whole different way of navigating any challenge in life, and honestly, challenge not feeling like a problem at all. The natural resistance to things not going how the mind thought they would go can still play out in my life, but without even trying, it's just very much a deep trust that every single experience in my life is kind of exactly what I need to be experiencing in that moment. It's exactly what I want in that moment. But, me talking like this, people can often get the impression that, wow, this is, why I recovered, because I always had this perspective on things. And it was much more about me realizing these things and then doing the work to kind of rewire myself to see the world in this perspective. So what really was important for me, if I talk about this kind of rewiring process of seeing challenge and obstacles and healing and all of that, was the foundation. Some of it came from Stoic philosophy, guys like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, I can't remember all of them, but some of these, ancient Greek philosophers, specifically from the Stoic kind of side of things, I really resonated with some of the things they were saying. And it was a lot about, realize that instead of seeking what's not here, that creates suffering, right? So, I mean, it's so funny how, like, after having gone deep on this path, I can see, like, the kind of massive overlap between all of these different traditions, from like Stoic philosophy and Buddhism and, all these different kind of awakening paths. All, you can start to see the same message just said in different ways, basically. And I guess this is what I started to see and started to really apply in my life. And then I would literally journal around this, and then that's one of the really helpful things that I was doing to rewire my brain. So it was basically around, like, I want this to be happening. I would tell myself that even if it didn't feel like that, I would say I would want this experience, right? I want this experience that I have right now. And it just became clearer and clearer to me the deeper that I went on this path, that this was the path to a life of freedom, was learning to open up to experience as it was. And this is the funny thing, I wasn't even into deep spirituality or anything at this stage. It was just becoming very clear to me in my own eyes that I was creating my own suffering by, and it's innocent, right? When I say I was creating my own suffering, I wasn't like, I'm not trying to guilt anybody that watches this and said, oh, so you're saying that about me. But you do have to have a mature understanding of this, that subconsciously, yes, you are, right? Your suffering is in your head. Doesn't mean your physical symptoms on your head, but I was creating my own suffering by fighting against my experience, right? And I realized this, and I didn't click all at once, not a chance. It took me a lot of work to break down these resistance patterns that had formed in my psyche, in my nervous system, in my mind, in my way of being in the world. There was a lot of this. I mean, I was very much trying to control people around me. I was trying to, fix things. I was like, not that that's bad, but it is when we do it to the extent of believing that the only way that we can be comfortable is by controlling everything around us so that it fits into our imagined world, right? So I especially when things were feeling challenging, right? I would have these realizations where it would be like, oh, okay, it's so obvious that it's all about resisting the moment and really coming into the present moment as it is without any resistance is freedom. And yet then the mind would have its problems, right? I would realize this and be like, but I don't feel it all the time. So then in these moments of struggle, this is where the rewiring would take place, right? This is what I talk about on my channel, that the moments of crashes, of symptoms, of flare-ups are understandably challenging, but they are exactly where the rewiring takes place, right? So this is what I would start to do, is I would say to myself, like, look, okay, this is a difficult moment and we can acknowledge that. We're not bypassing the emotions. So that was one aspect of it. And I've got other videos talking about how to authentically feel into what you're feeling. But the other aspect of it was rewiring my response. And I would sit there and originally I was doing a lot of journaling, and then later on I started doing audio journaling for myself. So I would just kind of put on a recorder on my phone, and this was like my brain retraining process. I would start talking to myself and I would say, like, no matter how challenging my experience is right now, no matter how much it feels like I've lost my progress, that I'm stuck, that I'm never going to recover, that is just the resistance arising in my experience, and it's allowed. But there's a difference between noticing resistance as a part of our experience and becoming resistance and fighting against the moment. So I would notice that and I would, okay, that's what's happening. But here I am in this absolute mystery of being a human being, and I have no idea how life sprouted, where consciousness arose from, and I want all of this experience. Right? Even if it didn't feel like it in the moment, I would work on retraining that response. And I would say to myself, like, hey, you want all of this. You want the fullness of a full human experience, but it doesn't mean that I want to stay stuck anymore. That's the difference, right? It's like acknowledging that I'm ready to let go of this way of being. And then I would really get in touch with the love aspect, right? So I would say to myself, and I love you. And I would really, again, rewire these responses, that what is happening is, is an experience that I can learn to increase my capacity for acceptance and for love, right? The more challenging the symptoms that come on, the more I can open my heart to something that's challenging, right? I maybe wasn't thinking about it exactly at this time, but this is how I will talk about it now. And it was that kind of a process where it was like, okay, there's symptoms. Well, symptoms are what I need to kind of keep going deeper. And it's okay if we can only do this like 1% less resistance, right? Because otherwise the mind can hear this and be like, oh, okay, so I have to totally and entirely love my symptoms 24/7. And if I don't do that, I'm failing. And it's like, that is not a perspective that's helpful, this all or nothing approach. It's more like, okay, I can see how much I'm fighting with my experience. What if I was 1% or 5% more loving and open to the fact that this is an experience that can help me to grow, and it's actually an experience that I want. Like these symptoms, I can open to the fact that there's resistance, but can I retrain myself to see that this is actually a very powerful opportunity? So, there's lots of different brain retraining methods, and I don't talk too much about that. But really, for me, the foundation was like, I've looked back at some of my old journals, and I'm even surprised by myself, all the different things I wrote. I forgot how much I had really, whenever things got challenging, I would come back into it, and I would be like, everything is an opportunity. This was key for me, right? This was probably the foundation of how my outlook on life changed, was like, everything is an opportunity to kind of have a deeper experience, and an opportunity to kind of, just grow and heal, basically. And healing becomes less of a task and more of a natural process as it goes deeper. And then this is more the spaces that I talk from nowadays. It's just like, you don't actually need to do anything, right? The whole project of healing is part of resistance. It's like, I need to fix this. So healing still happens, but just in a much more kind of allowing space. So this is what I talk from now, but the actual aspect of rewiring my brain did happen, right? So there's different stages to this kind of thing. So I don't know how how disjointed that comes across, but it's just what I felt called to speak about today, was kind of that don't underestimate the ability that you have to rewire your kind of brain's response to things, even if it feels like it's happening slowly. And it's not toxic positivity. This is one of the greatest pushbacks I see against these kind of brain retraining approaches. And it's totally understandable, because it can become toxic positivity if we don't allow ourselves to feel the deep, dark emotions at the same time. So the approach that I'm sharing is saying you can rewire your brain to see everything as an opportunity. And that includes allowing yourself to get in touch with the parts of yourself that are full of fear, that are full of resistance, opening your heart to those parts of yourself, and saying that is just as much a part of you as the part of you that feels love for everything. And that is how you can retrain your mind into this kind of open state of seeing opportunity everywhere without falling into toxic positivity. Because toxic positivity would be saying, it's not okay to feel that, right? I need to be positive 24/7. It's not okay to feel this. It's not okay to not be perfectly positive. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm saying, you can lay the foundation of, I'm going to open up to all of this kind of perspective of everything is an opportunity. Everything is something that I want in my experience to show me something about myself, to show me how to let go, to show me how to open my heart more, to show me how to be more authentic. Every single experience is this. It is that opportunity. But at the same time, you can acknowledge your humanness, that, hey, I'm not a perfect human. In fact, that's what this is all about, is acknowledging how much you don't need to be a perfect human, that you can just open your heart to all of experience and be just who you are. But you don't need to fall into the victim mindset. You don't need to fall into these kind of stuckness mindsets of, oh, okay, this is against me. Life is against me. So that's the key, right? Have a foundation of rewiring your response to everything, and then have the foundation of, I'm allowed to be me. I'm allowed to have fun. I'm allowed to enjoy my life. This is another aspect of it that I've been trying to touch on more recently, is like, allow yourself to do the things you want to do, and then see that you're going to invite all of your experiences though. So you do the things you want to, and then that might bring up the difficult roadblocks that you need to now open your heart to. So it doesn't mean it's like a upward trajectory 24/7. It means that we're going to go all over the show, and each part of that is something to help us go deeper into ourselves. So yeah, I hope that's helpful, and you'll find your way as well. It becomes more, I mean, watch these videos if they resonate and they help you open up. That's what I hope they do. But at the same time, then you find your techniques that work. And maybe the way you find your techniques is by reading a book here and there and listening to a teacher and doing a course on brain retraining. Like, all of that can be helpful. Resources are great, but everything points you back into your own trust of how you're gonna, your authentic trust though, not the doubt of the mind, right? Doubt is what stops us from being authentic. Oh, but is it this or is it that? Is it me or is it the, all of that is running away from trust. And it takes practice to get back into trust and intuition, but that's what everything I feel like is important, is to point you back into yourself, into what you know, and not rigidly applying somebody else's techniques and their healing path. So this was a little bit of a mix mash of everything, but hopefully it sparks something in you on your path.